I would be remiss if I did not say how completely grateful I am for having someone who I've considered to be a mentor and a leader in many ways in our communities and throughout working with young people and others. I am delighted that we'll be joined by RW Hicks, who is a former college administrator and dynamic person. He is going to be just joining us here shortly, but I will allow him to share some of his story and just in briefing how we connected more than 20 years ago. An extraordinary opportunity to connect with RW, better known as, not Richard, but RW, because he was such an extraordinary person in his own right. He is dynamic in many ways and is a leader among leaders, someone who has done a yeoman's job. We are coming to you through audio because we are connected through both sides of the country. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. He should be joining us here shortly. And that we had met in my years of working in the student aid, student finance world. And so what a dynamic person, an extraordinary personality, someone who is absolutely bar none. I can see the comments, and I'm just waiting for RW to join us here live and making sure that he is able to tune in. RW, I see that you have come into the weight room there. I'll go ahead and add you in. But it is certainly a great pleasure because he is someone who is phenomenal in what he does, in his regard, working with students and in the community. And what I have always found truly remarkable about what he's been able to do is be a facilitator and a supporter of students in their role in the community and working with a variety of technologies. And so in his years working at Humboldt State, was left in great regard and had such a high esteem from his colleagues and associates for being someone who is a dynamic person. And so I consider him to be absolutely, as we wait for him to join in, I wanted to just give you that background on who he is and certainly how we can appreciate what he can share with us as being a leader. I might be having a technical issue here. RW, if you can just put a 1 in the comment box if you can hear me. I sent a message along indicating that the weight room is open and to join in on the conversation. Hopefully that will connect. And then as well, what I wanted to share, because we are in such a time of student advocacy in light of all of the dynamic, fascinating parts of what's happening today in this world, that we have remarkable ways of connecting and sharing and being able to be connected, phenomenal in his way of dealing with students. And so for the better part of his years of working in student advocacy, had worked to be a champion and an advocate in helping to establish a Black student union in the 1970s, 80s, and working as well where he was an All-American football player at Humboldt State. And so wanting to make sure that we are appreciating all that he's done. I will see if I can get him here responding. There's an invite feature here in the Facebook Live mode, so I'm hope to that go ahead and get connected here. And certainly what I would like to do is, if we can't get connected here shortly, have another means of communication here as well. Technology always having fascinating ways to get and share. But as I was sharing, a Hall of Famer and a graduate of Humboldt State University, one of the very first African American administrators there, working with minority and underrepresented students, also with Native American populations in that part of the country. If you're familiar with Northern California, having a significant number of Native Americans and the tribal students that needed assistance. He managed the talent search programs and the student academic outreach services for thousands, and really was such a yeoman and leader in doing all that he could and is viable and reaching out. And RW, if you're there and you could put a 1 in the chat box, I think that you might be there. And if you can type in, then we'll just go ahead and get some of that going so we can do that, or go to another communication technique. I don't see any response, but I will wait. Thank you, RW. Appreciate it if you're here. I think that you're connected. And just some advice to offer. I think that's you, that you are connected. Yes. Okay, try to patch you in. And with that being that the phenomenal job that was done with the outreach programs throughout the state of California, working not only in that particular area, but in the tribal areas, Northern California, but also in the inner city areas, as I understand, Oakland and some others, Los Angeles, and being able to reach lots of different communities. So I am particularly appreciative of his leadership for many years in being able to reach and connect and be dynamic in doing so, making sure to have such a favorable reach far and wide, and being able to be phenomenal in doing so. One of the great things that we talked about just prior to him joining in is about the phenomenal way to connect with various students, especially at a time right now where there's so much potential and need and opportunity for them to access students, leaders. And so I know that he has been called upon by various universities as an advisor and others to be a strategic support. And so I'm excited that that's a way that he can get and stay connected in that regard. I think you're connecting. What I am doing is making sure that you...
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Hello. Now what I can do is figure
Can
out
you
how
hear me?
to... I can hear you and see you, I think. Oh my,
I
okay.
can see you too, yeah.
Good. Well, it got connected, and I don't know how I did it, but I was trying to do it without the video here on, but I have to do something to... Oh, there we go. That's
Okay.
great. Now I just have to figure out... I think I've got it, so I've got it connected, and I was trying to make it so I could put the picture in on the other side here. Apologize here. Let me see. I can do this. Okay. Technology.
I have to hold it up though, so.
Okay, well that's all right. And I'm way up in the screen. I got to back up a little bit. Well, good things. I'm thankful that we were able to get connected. That was a little bumpy, huh?
Yes,
Gosh,
it was, but we're connected.
But we're leaders. We figure it out. We could do this.
We worked it out. We worked it out.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much for sticking it out and being able to share. I wanted to say thank you for tuning in, because this is exciting to be able to talk with someone who I've truly admired your work for years, and working with students and being able to be an example in the community. And I thought I would just have you on to share briefly about, how did you get to and through your journey of being a leader so dynamic?
Well, it took a lot of people. For instance, I was thinking back to my first days at Humboldt State. There was a man by the name of Earl Manyweather, and he was the first official administrator, black official at Humboldt State. And he was one of the earlier students that graduated from Humboldt State. And he actually took the time to take us few black folks that attended Humboldt at the time, take us under his wing, provide accessibility. Where we needed something, he was there to, he'd carve out some time to talk to us. And that was the route. He showed me basically what to do, how to do it, and and how important it was to communicate with students, because we were, definitely in need of it. We're growing. We're trying to find ourselves. We're trying to discover the world and who we are and what kind of impact we would have. So he was a major factor, Mr. Earl Manyweather, and he's passed now. But he made by the way, he was also the first one inducted to the HSU Athletic Hall of Fame. So he was not only a great administrator, but he was also one of the best athletes that Humboldt's ever seen.
Wow, that's extraordinary.
Yeah,
And do you feel like that experience, having been someone who was involved in doing so much, he was not only, it sounds like, a mentor to you, but also someone who was a
yes.
proponent and in your All-American career as a football player. Talk about that a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit.
yeah. Well, yeah, and also I could say, he watched me play, and he was the first one to ever approach me and says, RW, you actually have some potential to play professional football. And I laughed. Ha ha, you're right. I wasn't buying it, but like I say, he was working at the time. He was working with the Oakland Raiders, and
Yeah,
I never played for the Raiders, but he was the first one that kind of told me that you might be able to do something with football. But
right.
I didn't believe it, but
That's right.
I guess it came to pass.
Sure, sure. Well, and it did. I mean, it obviously was that hard work that paid off and being involved in your energy and everything else. So that's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it came to somewhere. I can't remember where I heard it when I was a youngster. I think it was a professional, an athlete that actually said on TV that he plays every play like it's his last. And
Wow.
somehow it stuck. So I kind of use that as words to go by, or a method, or a theory. Make every
Mhm.
play, make every effort you do like it's your last,
That's
and
good.
it paid off a lot. Yeah,
That's good. It sounds like that's solid advice for what you had for years working as an administrator, working with students and being an advocate. What do you attribute to being sort of like that aha moment that you had when you knew you were a leader?
well, that's a good question. I'm thinking back to the first few days that I arrived on campus and looked around, and there weren't many students that looked like me. The majority of us were actually attached to the football program. And
Right,
so,
right,
well, where are the rest of the students? There weren't a lot of us.
right.
And so we worked well together. We established the first Black Student Union at Humboldt State. Yeah. And
Hmm.
so now we had, you know, a, 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 we were actually there as a unit, as a coordinated organization. So we
Hmm.
can actually look into things, and we had the access of the buildings where we needed meetings and things of that nature. So that was a big help. It helped us organize. And
Yes,
I happen to be one of the few that signed that line to get the first Black Student Union. Uh,
right.
I returned to Humboldt after playing professional football with the Detroit Lions, uh,
Hmm.
because I liked the school, and it had an
Hmm.
opportunity. The coach actually asked me to come up and coach, so I did
Oh,
so, and I coached 2 years, and during those 2 years I went to two commencement exercises,
hmm.
and stayed there pretty much all day, and two
Yeah.
years in a row, and did not see a person that looked like me cross the stage. 2 years in a
Wow.
row. That's
Wow.
the sciences and all the other programs, and the forestry and the history and the sociology and psychology, all the different schools. Not
Wow.
one African American student crossed the stage in 2 years. And I said, well,
Wow.
I'm coaching football. I'm fighting to get some of these players actually to start and recruit. Maybe I should take my energies and efforts to another area, and that was
Ex-
recruiting. And I talked to administrators there. Why is it that we are so white?
Yeah.
And he says, well, we're so far away from where Black students are. Well, we found out that the people
Mm.
that were going down, it wasn't a big interest to them. So
Wow.
that's when I targeted my energies to recruiting, and I was able to get a part-time. I started out three-quarter time in a program called Student Affirmative Action,
Okay.
and that was before they decided they didn't like affirmative action. But the
Mm.
idea of it, that it was a very positive program because it did the things that the administration and the admissions office, and it wasn't one of the things that they thought was very high on their to-do list, was to recruit a diversity of diversity of
Wow.
students.
Wow.
So from that point, we really worked hard to do that. So that was
Sure.
big, and we started out with, I just wanted to share with you one other thing. We had the first black graduation,
Oh,
and it
awesome.
finally had enough students, and they finally went through, and we had students graduating, and they said, well,
Wow.
let's have a black graduation. And
Right.
the university said, well, why you want to do that? You're going to separate yourselves from the rest of us. So we had to
Mm-hmm.
call it parent appreciation as opposed to black graduation. When we changed it
Okay.
to parent appreciation, it was all right then.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah, interesting, so I learned a long time ago that there's sometimes the terminology is
Yes.
effective. Use the right terminology and you'll know, okay, maybe they'll let you go. So
Yes.
from that point, we had, all until today, we're still having the big black graduation. We can now call it black graduation,
Right.
or African American graduation or appreciation. But,
Mm.
it was a struggle just getting it started. So
Absolutely. That's
I
really
don't know.
interesting. Something you had such a fascinating career, and then what I shared in your intro is how you were the advocate for students, but also how you and I had connected through college awareness programs
Mm-hmm.
20 something years ago. And what we talked about is 20 years ago,
Yeah.
and what has to be done to help educate the students and the parents about taking ownership and being leaders of their careers,
Yeah.
of their next step, of their academic life. What would you offer to a student leader in today, 2018? We have so many tumultuous things, obviously, for young people, but what would you offer if you had one or two bits of advice for student leaders?
Well, one thing I would say is pretty much if I can use my model, find an administrator on campus that's willing to sit and work with you and talk to you because they can be an advocate, and
Mm,
that advocacy is very important to get you, the information that you may not see right in front of you.
right.
That use their experience, their knowledge of the system to actually give you some pointers to where to go next. Because sometimes
Exactly.
you can run into walls and not know it. Just because you're ambitious doesn't get you through the right doors, and sometimes it gets your information kind of uh, uh, misconstrued, and you can, and if you bark, up the wrong tree, they'll just let you sit up there until you wither.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
That's something. That's something. And I know that your work so much in the community with young people, it is fascinating how the world has changed. And so leaders now today jump in and they're expected to sort of know what to do.
yeah,
If you had to say to somebody who's turning a corner and they're leaving their leadership role, because I know you exited and you're still esteemed and regarded. I was sharing in your intro about how you're in demand of being a consultant and people look to you, or your name is still in the outreach community today. What would you offer advice to someone who is leaving a leadership role because they obviously may want to still be in a leading role somewhere?
well, as far as like you have an idea, there's enough out there that you see that needs to be addressed.
Yes.
So it's not a hard thing to find out what needs to be improved. That's, that, you can, come back with different ideas, and you'll have more than one direction. For
Yes.
instance, like, one of the things I also did with the programs that we talked to about, close to 700 to 800 eighth graders each and every year,
Hmm.
promoting uh, the importance of going to college and how to prepare for that option.
Exactly.
So that was every year, and we actually we watched it go from 10% college going to at least a third plus, and that's
Right.
over, that first group of that 4 years later we actually looked, and that made a jet. That made a big thing. So we have more kids. And these are not just, this is everybody in Humboldt County. So,
Yeah.
we noticed that there was big jumps, and that was our uh, pre-collegiate outreach program. That
Okay.
was very important, and that still goes on in the community. They changed it. They bring the students to the university. Back in the day, we used to take it to the road. We'd go up to Crescent City. We'd go to all the junior high schools, and in Arcata, Eureka, all the way down to South Fork and back to the reservation at Hoopa. So we did a lot of traveling. I might
Hmm.
add, most of that was me, but we did a lot of traveling.
Right. Right. I did share that about how you've worked with the Native American population and
Yes.
how there have been shifts. Talk about that because diversity has changed not only in California but nationally. The students that you work with, what were some of the opportunities and challenges with working with some of diverse populations?
Well, it wasn't a challenge. It was the reserve. We have the largest. Humboldt State serves the largest reservation in the state of California, and so we have our programs. We have American Indian College on Innovation Day, which I believe may be just under 30 years old now. So we've been doing that for a long time at Humboldt. I've left and people have picked up the reins on that and run with it, and it's still a thriving, solvent program. And I'm very pleased just to be associated with that.
Yeah.
So we've learned some lessons. I remember there was one time we had an administrator from the admissions office and come over and talk to the parents about the importance of uh, giving the students this opportunity to go to college. And
Yeah.
one point that was made was that, you know, if if your son or daughter goes to college and they can go anywhere in the world and contribute, and they said, well, we looked around, it wasn't hitting well. And the
Yeah.
fact was, you're educating the students, they're taking them off the reservation. So now you're
Mhm.
taking students who are educated away from the reservations where they actually need people to step up and follow on with their elders' work. And so
Right.
we learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
So, no, it's not
Exactly.
about educating and escaping. It's
Right.
educating and producing and helping and solidifying the infrastructure where you live. So that's
Right.
very
Right.
important also. So we learned that and
Hmm.
never will forget that lesson.
A valuable lesson.
Yeah, fortunately it wasn't me, but I did pick up on it.
Well, that's great. I mean, so many, I just say pillars and opportunities to engage in leading roles. And so
Mm,
that's why I knew that you would be a phenomenal person for people to meet and learn about because I know I have always admired the work and still do because it's a legacy that you left at Humboldt State, but still an example to so many rising leaders, how they should do it, bring someone along, your mentor who you talked about in this short few minutes you have, together here to share, is there anything you wanted people to know about you or leadership or what we should be doing as people today working together to help better leaders?
okay, well, I noticed there was a couple things and I kind of some touched on it a couple of weeks ago. The importance of um, of the staff training and ability to grow with the program. And one of the things we used to do, and it was a yearly activity. It was the reading of the grant, and basically what that did was bring everybody. We had a talent search grant, which was federally funded through it was a TRIO program. And
Mm-hmm.
what we did was that we went out and served students, and we brought students in and prepared the students for each and every step so they could uh, have the opportunity to attend the college of their choice. Um,
Right.
One of the things we had to do was to make sure that the guidelines, the programs that we were there, we were all on the same page on what the results should be. How many would go here and how many would do. So we had those strict kind of concrete results, but we
Right.
also had to buy in on how to actually contact the parents and students. And
Uh,
so there was and we wanted to do it in the most efficient way because, as you know, each member uh, has their own strengths and weaknesses. That happens it goes both ways. But
Absolutely.
to use their best uh, energies, because when you hire somebody, you're hiring the best and the brightest. That's what you try to do. But then you
Right.
also want to use their creativity and their ability to buy in and use their natural instincts to do their job. So not everybody went at it the same way. Everybody had their own particular, and I wanted to make sure that everybody had that ability to make that input to do something that, you know, they could embrace and they could enhance the program,
Mm-hmm.
and then get to our goals. So there's a lot of ways of getting to to a goal. So I wanted them
Right.
to use their best efforts, and that's, you know, I guess that was one of the things that I really liked the most about the leadership, is that, you know, I gave them, I wanted to make sure we had our best foot forward, whatever it is, and one person
Right.
would go about it a different way, but they knew the
Right.
objectives. And I think that was really important. And that's why it was, I feel that's why it was really successful, because everybody bought into the
Mhm.
concept.
Exactly. And that's what it was, a success and legacy. And as you talk about being able to bring teams together, which you have done throughout your career, working with teams, working whether or not it was with the students, and when you were an administrator, as you mentioned, working with students and staff, and fortunate that you left such a legacy working with the Black student unions, but you're still involved and the work that you
Yes,
continue to do. And I
yes,
think that's phenomenal because, you know, we need that more now than ever to have folks who are doing that pivotal leadership and being able to be real pillars in communities and being pivotal. So I know I am thankful for our time. We're just about up. And let me say, I am truly grateful for you jumping on Facebook Live with me. I know you're an active person on Facebook Live and social media. So I love that you stay connected. You have quite the following of students and others. And look forward to keeping in touch with you. When can we see some more writings or book or bio or something about you?
I'm not a book writer, I'm a report writer.
You're a report writer. Okay. Well, we'll talk to your agent and see if they can get a book out about you, your story, and your journey to the NFL and as an administrator and esteemed associate and colleague, how we had met in the student finance world many years ago.
Yeah,
And
well, if I can leave it with anything, my last, my statement would be to give it all you have. Every time you step up, give it all you got. Find ways of doing things better. Be creative, and be open for criticism. And always do the best you can. Always do the best you can. If you can't do the best you can, do better next time. I
awesome.
think I think
No,
Maya Angelou said that. You know, when you do better, and when you can do better, then do better. Something similar. I think I paraphrased it.
awesome. Awesome. I love it. Well, I am so grateful. Thank you so much for tuning in and that you'll be part of this ongoing series for Leadership Reflections. I know you are a follower. Thank you. Next Sunday night and ongoing 8 p.m.
Well, you
Eastern,
can't get
5
rid of me
p.m.
now.
Oh, no, I'm not at all. We need a bio from you. I'm looking at this. I see bio in your future. So I'll have people ask you and encourage you because you have such a phenomenal story. And hopefully maybe again later this year having you talk some more about the work that you've done in the community since you've left the role as a lead administrator at a major California campus. So
All
again,
right.
until tune in again, thank you so much for being here. Much appreciate you for being here, joining in.
All right. It was a pleasure,
All right.
and thanks for all those that connected. I appreciate your connecting. That means a lot to me.
Absolutely, RW. And I'll make sure that we get this packaged up for you so you can circulate this in your circles as well. I want to make sure to showcase all there is about leadership, and you're such a tremendous example. So, again, this
Okay.
is Dawn McCoy with special guest RW Hicks. Thank you so much, RW.
Okay. Bye bye.
Here now.